here, and I've been busy working on my farm. Look at all the fruit I picked. I picked apples, oranges, and bananas. But now I have a problem. Before I send all this fruit to the market, I need to find out how many apples I have and how many bananas I have and how many oranges I have. I also need to know which fruit I have more of and which fruit I have less of. But when I look in the crate, all I see is a bunch of fruit all mixed up. And that makes it hard to count. Oh, how am I going to solve this problem? I know! I'll organize this fruit on a graph! Yes, that's what I'll do. Let's do it. The first step to graphing is collecting the information or the objects you want to graph. And I've already done that. I want to graph different kinds of fruit. So I've collected all the fruit right here in this crate. Then the next step to graphing is sorting the information or the objects. I know sorting is when you put objects together that are alike. And I have three kinds of fruit. I've got apples, bananas, and oranges. And so since I have three kinds of fruit, I'll need to make three groups. So let's see. I'm going to put the apples right here, and I'll put the bananas right here. And then I'll put the oranges right here. Now let me finish sorting the fruit. Alright, now I have three groups of fruit. I can see that I have apples and oranges and bananas. But it's still hard to count the exact amount. And it is hard to see which kind of fruit I have more of and which kind of fruit I have less of. Oh, I know. I'll organize it on a graph. Here is a graph. And a graph has very important parts. A graph has a title. This graph is about different kinds of fruit. So the title of this graph is Fruit Graph. This graph has columns. This graph has 3 columns because I'm graphing 3 kinds of fruit. 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns. And each column has a label, so I know where to put the fruit. In this column, the label says oranges, so I put the oranges in this column. Here, the label says apples, so I know this is the column that I have to put the apples. And this column says bananas. And you guessed it, that's where I'll put the bananas. Now the labels on this graph are at the bottom. And they're at the bottom because this is a vertical graph. And that just means that it starts from the bottom and goes up. Now I'm ready to put my information, the data I collected, on my graph. Now I'm ready to organize the fruit on my graph. I have to place the fruit in the correct column. Thank goodness I labeled each column so I know where to put the fruit. This label says oranges, so in this column, I'll put the oranges. This label says apples, so in this column, I'll put the apples. And this label says bananas, and you guessed it, in this column, I'll put the bananas. Now I'm ready to graph. I'll start with the oranges. I'm going to start at the bottom and work up because this is a vertical graph. Oops! I skipped a space. You can't skip spaces on a graph. I've got to put this orange in the right space. There. Now I can keep graphing.
Woo-wee! That was a lot of work, but I did it. I organized all the data, the information on a graph. Now that the fruit I collected is organized on a graph, I'm able to look at the graph and answer my questions. And there are some things I noticed right away. I'm able to compare the amount of bananas to the amount of apples. I noticed that the banana column goes all the way up to here, and the apple column stops here. That tells me that there are more bananas than apples. That's because the banana column goes past the apple column. I'm also able to compare the oranges to the amount of apples. I noticed that the orange column stops here, and the apple column goes past the oranges column. That tells me that there are fewer oranges than apples. The orange column is shorter than the apple column. So there are less oranges. I'm also able to see right away which fruit I have the most of. Do you see it? That's right. The fruit that I have the most of is the bananas. I know that because the banana column is longer than the apple column, and the banana column is longer than the orange column. The banana column is the longest. I'm also able to see right away which fruit I have the least of. Do you see it? That's right. The oranges. The fruit that I have the least of is the oranges. I know that because the orange column is shorter than the apple column, and the orange column is shorter than the banana column. The orange column is the shortest. So that tells me that the fruit I have the least of is the oranges. I was able to draw all of those conclusions by just looking at the graph. Wow! Graphs make getting information so much easier.
Now I need to get exact amounts of each kind of fruit. So do you know what I have to do? That's right, I have to count. I have to count to get the amount.
I'll start with the bananas since I have more bananas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 bananas. I'll write the number 7 right here. Now I'll count the apples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 apples. I'll write the number 6 right here. Now I'll count the oranges. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 oranges. I'll write the number 4 right here. The graph makes it easier to count. 7 is more than 6. 7 is more than 4. So that tells me that the fruit I have the most of is the bananas. 4 is less than 6. And 4 is less than 7. That tells me that the fruit I have the least of is the oranges. There are fewer oranges than apples, and there are fewer oranges than the bananas. Graphing is a whole lot of fun.
Ooh-wee! Using a graph sure does help me do my job. Now I'm ready to take the fruit to the market.